We are surrounded by exciting innovations. Governments are integrating machine learning into service delivery. Health systems are experimenting with diagnostic tools. Education platforms are personalizing learning. Labor markets are being reshaped by generative AI. The question for all of us gathered here, policymakers, researchers, tech developers, funders, is what works, for whom, and under what conditions? We care about real-world impact. Today's seminar is designed around that idea. Throughout the day, you will hear research presentations by J-PAL-affiliated researchers and panel discussions by experts across 5 thematic areas. First, how AI in health can save lives at scale. Then, AI in governance to revolutionize government efficiency. Next, AI in work. Humans, AI, or both. Followed by AI in climate and agriculture, building resilient communities. And last but not least, AI in education, customizing learning for all. Across these sessions, we will explore how evaluations that measure real-world impact can help us move beyond the hype and toward evidence, ensuring that AI innovations deliver real, measurable benefits to those who stand to gain the most. We are honored to be part of the India AI Impact Summit 2026, the first of these summits to be held in the Global South, and one dedicated to impact, which is dear to our mission here at J-PAL. We look forward to a day of thoughtful discussions, debates, practical insights, and to working together to ensure AI delivers not just innovation, but measurable and meaningful impact for social good. A point on logistics. Please scan the QR code on the screen to access the day's agenda. I hope you all leave today with practical takeaways you can apply right away. And with that, I kickstart today's event with our first session. From algorithms to outcomes, building AI that works for people. Please join me in welcoming Iqbal Dhaliwal to the stage to share opening remarks. Iqbal is the Global Executive Director of J-PAL at MIT, where he oversees J-PAL's global work to generate and use rigorous evidence to reduce poverty. He also leads Project AI Evidence, J-PAL's AI team, that works with different organizations and funders to strengthen the evidence base on AI-enabled programs and to fund the research and learning needed to scale what works. And a fun fact, Iqbal previously served in the Indian Administrative Services and was in fact the topper of the 1996 batch. So he wears multiple hats. Iqbal, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Hi. Okay. Can you hear me now? Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, and thanks first of all to all of you who came from wide and far to attend this event. And I know this is the starting session at 9:30 in the morning, so thank you so much for coming. I want to also begin by saying a huge thank you to the Ministry of Electronics and IT and to Secretary Mr. Krishnan for giving us this opportunity to be part of this day's agenda on such an incredible day. Also want to thank all our speakers who have come from far and wide. You have traveled many, many hours to be here. Extremely grateful to you. And finally, I just want to say a big thank you to the entire J-PAL team, led by Shobhini Mukherjee, the head of our India office, whom you'll meet in a little bit, as well as the team at Global for helping put this together. Okay, so I think my time starts now, so I'm going to get going. What I thought I would start the day is by just setting the agenda on how two things intersect, which is development economics, which is the study of how you can get people out of poverty and improve their social outcomes, and how that intersects with impact. Impact very closely being defined as the change in those final outcomes, and how now those two are intersecting with AI. Okay, so I think we are all very, very thrilled about AI for a number of reasons, which are extremely genuine. First, it's one of the few general purpose technologies to come out in a decade. You know, think about the electricity, think about internet, which means that it can be the building block for a lot of applications to be developed on top of it. The second thing, it's widely accessible. Each one of you who has a smartphone in your hands or in your pocket is touching and feeling AI today, whether it's through WhatsApp or through some other application. It's, you know, at the margin, the cost to add another user to an AI application is not large. It is a technology which is constantly improving. Think about, you know, most of the hardware in your house or even software It takes a while for upgrades to happen, but AI literally evolves overnight. And finally, it has multimodal capabilities, which means, for instance, you can deal with it on ChatGPT as text, but you can also process it as a video, you can process it as an audio. And today we take that for granted, but there are very few technologies which have this multimodal agentic capabilities. So it's not a surprise, as you see on the right side of the screen, that a lot of governments and a lot of private sector is putting trillions of dollars into this, and India has been at the forefront of it, starting with the launch of the AI mission almost 3 years ago. So at JPAL, how do we think about what are the main areas based on 25 years of research and development economics as to where AI could have the most impact? I think the first one where we are really excited about is that AI can help improve the targeting and needs prediction. So you're going to hear today from Professor Monik about his project in Bihar, where they are trying to do very detailed predictions about where the floods will come and give very customized warnings to folks. The second one is to increase personalized, timely support. Think about a farmer in rural Maharashtra who has a leaf on which there is a disease coming up, and that person can upload a photo of that blighted leaf and get very, very customized recommendations specific to him and his soil condition as to how to fight that blighted disease. The third thing is, which I'm personally very excited about given my background in the service, is maximizing the effectiveness of frontline service providers. Our teachers, our nurses, our doctors, our agricultural extension workers, they're some of the most committed people, but they're also some of the busiest people. And the ability of AI to augment their effectiveness is huge. And again, today you will hear case studies from Sam and Tiago, who's joining us from Brazil, on how some of this thing is being applied to education, and similarly from fantastic organizations like Rocket Learning and Noura Health on how it's being applied in education and in health. A lot of time people think about AI that we have to worry about the biases in AI, and oftentimes I tell people in reply that actually I'm much more worried about the biases in us humans, because the biases in us have taken thousands and thousands of years to evolve, whereas with AI, if I do it well, it's a few lines of code that you can actually work on to try and get those biases out. And so similarly, a lot of AI applications that we are looking at are about reducing biases in hiring practices, in promotions, in recruitment, and some of these are very important. The fourth is improving organizational capabilities. Again, you will hear about, of the government and various organizations. Today you will hear from a wonderful, oh my God, you're going to live a long time. So today you're going to hear from Utkarsh at Adalat AI about how this wonderful organization is trying to increase the efficiency of court systems in India and reduce the backlog in a way that would have been literally unimaginable a few years ago. Think about very similar applications of 100 calling, where it can be triaged better. And the final thing, which I know the finance secretaries all around the country should be thinking more about, is how AI can increase tax mobilization, but more importantly, how AI can make the tax system more progressive. So at some point, in my study, I'll tell you about a study from Senegal, which tried to do exactly that. So kind of those are the six areas where we feel, at least 6 areas where AI can have a big role. But I also want to sound a little bit of a word of caution. If you've stayed long enough in development economics, you've seen a lot of these fads, a lot of these silver bullets arise. So one of these that a decade plus ago came was this one laptop per child. A sense that, if you give this one laptop, it increases educational achievements, it increases socialization, and by the way, the kids can also help their parents enroll in government programs. So the news was just full about, one laptop per child, how it's going to be a big solution. And then you fast forward a few years ago, and the exact same newspapers and magazines and journals started changing the tune, and it started saying, well, actually, you know what? After all this investment, this didn't really work. In fact, there are books written that you can download on Amazon on how this one laptop per child failed. And if you think that this is just a fad that happened somewhere abroad, it's not true. Think about, I pulled this from the Indian Express. These are 1 year apart. If you read on the left side, it talks about Uttar Pradesh launching a free laptop scheme for children. You may not be able to read the dates at the bottom. The date on the left is March 2013. And then June 2014, the free laptop per child scheme is shut down. So I think, like the contrast here basically tells you the story that I just want to caution you about, which is that unless we know a technology works in the lab but also works in the field, how it intersects with the field and what is going to be the final outcome, we should not get too carried away by these silver bullets or one application at a time, despite how promising they might look. And this is exactly where JPAL comes in. We were a center which was founded 25 years ago at MIT's economics department by Nobel laureates Abhijit Banerjee, Esther Duflo, and Michael Kremer was one of our original affiliates. He's the third Nobel laureate who you'll be hearing about from in a couple of minutes. And we have done these randomized evaluations which try to get at the causality or try to get at what is the true impact of these technologies, these programs in the field and across multiple sectors. And I think it's really, really important to do that. The other thing that is really important to do in this, as we roll out AI or other application, is to build a coalition and not try to do it alone. It can be a coalition of researchers. So you see some of the professors on the left side who have done a lot of this research, who are doing a lot of research on AI. In the middle, you see the implementing partners. These are governments, but these are also NGOs and social enterprises who are at the cusp of it. And then the final thing is donors who are really looking to try and understand what is the true impact of all the programs and policies that they're funding. And if you do this well, then you can actually have massive impact this slide is just showing the number of programs which have been evaluated with using rigorous evidence and scaled up. I just want to end up by just saying, what are the three things that we want to look at as we are rolling out the evaluation? I think the first thing, and this is going to be the theme of all the sessions, so I just wanted to put it out there that as you listen to the remaining 5 sessions of the day today, please keep thinking about what is the true impact of this particular AI application, who benefits. Sometimes the average effects can be very large, but are the best students in the class benefiting the most from AI, or is it the worst performing students in the class who are benefiting? Because if it's the best performing students who are benefiting from AI, that's great, but that is not why you're investing in that program. You are investing to lift the average. And the third thing is, how does this technology intersect with the existing systems and processes? Because the technology has to intersect with public policy and financial constraints and so forth. So you are going to hear today from a star cast of people who have come from all over the world. These are tech companies. We have folks from Anthropic and Google and Meta here. We have folks from the donor agencies, including Gates Foundation, Community Jameel, who are going to be speaking to us. And we have researchers as well, and also government partners, including Mr. Krishnan and Mr. Abhishek Singh. So thank you very much for coming, and look forward to a very exciting day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iqbal. It is now my pleasure to introduce Professor Michael Kremer to share some remarks. Michael Kremer is a professor at the University of Chicago and the director of the Development Innovation Lab. Michael's research is increasingly focused on the application of AI to improve development outcomes, particularly in education and agriculture, as a co-director of the Human-Centered Weather Forecasts Initiative. And a fun fact, Michael is a 2019 Nobel laureate in economic sciences with JPAL co-founders Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo for their experimental approach to alleviating global poverty.
Great, thank you so much. So as Iqbal noted, AI has huge potential to improve public services, but it's important to test that impact, and it's important to do so in real-world conditions, not just in a lab-type setting. So I'd like to give a few examples where AI is already starting to transform public services in India, and where there's evidence of that impact. So one area is the AI revolution in weather forecasting. Last year, the Indian government sent AI-enabled monsoon onset forecasts to 38 million farmers. Now these, one type of evaluation is, did the AI work in the sense of adequately predicting? Well, this last year, as you know, was an unusual monsoon year. The monsoon arrived early, but then it paused in its northward progression. The forecast that the Indian government sent out correctly predicted that. Okay, a second question is, does this actually affect people? Well, there's strong evidence from multiple randomized controlled trials around the world that farmers respond to weather forecasts. There's some of this evidence is from India. You'll hear evidence discussed later today about flood forecasts. There's also evidence on monsoon onset forecasts from Telangana showing that farmers changed their behavior when they got these forecasts. And then very preliminary evidence from the 2025 dissemination by the Indian government. There's at least some evidence from Odisha that farmers who received forecasts of the delayed northward progression of the monsoon were more likely to transplant and to choose hybrid seeds than others who didn't, in at least some areas of the state. So I think this is one example, and in part I highlighted this to just show people often think immediately of education or of health, but there are many areas where AI can play a huge role. Let me pick another area that's maybe slightly outside what people would think about at first, but where India is already using AI and where I think there's a lot of potential for the future, but there's shares some preliminary results on the impact already. So, installing cameras with AI to pick up traffic violations could be both a technical improvement over normal human enforcement and just pick up more violations and be more accurate, but it's also something that could help ideally, and we don't have evidence on this yet, be seen as more fair and more transparent than relying entirely on human discretion. Now, we don't yet have evidence on that, but let me discuss another part of the traffic enforcement system. Microsoft Research India developed an AI automated driver's license testing software called HAMS. HAMS is currently active across 56 RTOs in India, and it's been used for over 345,000 driving tests. Okay, there's some indication that this lowered the pass rate on the tests. But we're working on evaluating HAMS, and what we did was we pulled together on-the-road driving data from thousands of drivers of Ola, India's leading cab aggregator. And what we found was that HAMS testing reduced reports of unsafe driving by 20 to 30%. Again, this is just preliminary evidence, but it suggests that automated driver's license technology really has a lot of potential. Okay. We know that India has already done nationwide implementation of Poshan Tracker, and that has strong evidence. There's also the eSanjeevani system in health. Let me mention something in education. We evaluated the personalized adaptive learning software implemented by the government of Andhra Pradesh for grades 6 through 9 in collaboration with the Central Square Foundation. The AP government has rolled out the program in over 1,500 schools statewide and is actively working to expand it to additional schools. Now, when we evaluated this, we found that this doubled the pace of student learning with just 1 hour a week of usage. So huge impact, even with relatively modest usage. I'm happy to talk more about some of the things will be needed to make this successful more broadly. There's a number of studies of this type of personalized adaptive learning. One key thing is working with the human systems as, to get high usage. In general, I've noted I've focused on examples where there's been evaluation and success has been found. But I do want to note some areas where steps will need to be taken. First, a lot of the applications of AI to government services are things, there's going to be strong commercial incentives to invest in AI for many private sector applications. Improving government services, that's not a market that's quite as lucrative. So thinking about how to incentivize that, and that could be philanthropy, that could be government procurement systems, is going to be important. The second issue is finding ways to encourage utilization in the public sector. If we think about the private sector, often with technology, incumbents have a hard time adopting new technology. And you get new firms entering that are digital native or AI native. That's a little bit difficult in government because there's not that natural competition. One thing, so I think really thinking about how are you going to facilitate that process of adaptation. India may have an advantage here because of the structure with multiple states. And states may be able to do that experiments, and the center may be able to facilitate that experimentation by the states. But for that to really have an impact, you don't just want the experimentation, but as Iqbal indicated, you want careful evaluation so that other states can learn from the experience of states that try things out. Okay? And then let me come to a final issue, which I think is really vital, which is thinking about procurement. The standard approach of go for the low-cost bidder when there's quality variation may not work. But even thinking about how to incorporate quality, that requires a lot of thought. And happy to talk about that more later, but let me note that there can be a tendency to lock in. So if somebody wins the contract, then maybe they have an advantage to win the next contract. Well, how do you avoid that if you're the government? Well, one approach would be to award multiple contracts for maybe different schools get different ed tech providers, for example. Then structure that in a way that facilitates evaluation. So you can see what the impact is of one ed tech firm versus another ed tech firm versus just the standard way of doing business. And then award the next stage of the contract to whoever's doing the best, or at least award more to whoever's doing the best. Very complicated subject, just wanted to throw out that idea. AI has tremendous potential. I think evaluation is going to be very important, and I think thinking through systems for organizational change in governments, including new systems for procurement, is going to be very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Now please join me in welcoming Mr. S. Krishnan to the stage. Mr. Krishnan is the Secretary of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology of the Government of India. In his role at MeitY, AI is part of the day-to-day work of building India's digital and technology ecosystem. And a fun fact, as the former Finance Secretary of Tamil Nadu, Mr. Krishnan has deep expertise in not just government finances, but also in macroeconomics policy, which he worked on at the IMF during the very critical period following the global financial crisis.
Good morning to all of you, and let me at the outset welcome you all to Delhi and to Bharat Mandapam, to the India AI Impact Summit, which we are hosting here. Thank you all for coming out all this way and joining us here and making this truly an energetic and significant event of the way that the impact of AI is being looked at globally and what is it that we can do in this space as time goes by. I was struck by what Iqbal had to say when he started off in his speech about hype cycles around technology and hype cycles about possible silver bullets and solutions. And I was just reflecting that very similarly, about, say, 15 years ago, people thought financial engineering will solve every problem in the world, or possibly about 20 years ago. And there was so much going on about financial engineering until all of that came to a crash with the global financial crisis of 2007 and 8, and which one had an occasion to witness at fairly close quarters in the IMF those days. So sometimes you do get caught in this idea that are we on the right track, and are we doing what we need to do, and are we spending the right amounts of money on the right kinds of things? And that is where I think impact and impact evaluation is something that you need to work on a consistent basis. And that's also clearly where the kind of work that JPAL does and the kind of work that academics and other skeptics do to make sure that we are kept on the straight and the narrow in terms of what we are attempting to do is important. We in government always are looking for silver bullets. We are always trying to see, is that the next solution? Will this solve all the problems? And can we put all our eggs in this one basket and see that issues get resolved and we can move forward? We've attempted, to the extent possible, that in the Indian context, to be as deliberate and as flexible as possible in the way that we have designed the India AI mission to make sure that we are able to take approaches which can work. I was also struck by what Dr. Michael Kremer had to say about government procurement and how we can experiment with it. In some ways, the experimentation on how we are trying to make available AI compute for use by researchers, innovators, small and medium enterprises and students is something that we have attempted to build around this model of trying to have a number of people who make their offerings, try to put them all on a sort of a common platform, see what works, see how we can deepen that engagement. So something we seem to have got a little right, and it might be useful to look at how exactly that has worked. I can't say that it is a complete success or every aspect of it already works wonderfully, but it is something, fortunately, we have left space to correct with repeats. The reason I highlight this is that oftentimes, for countries like India and for countries in the global south, you need to think through solutions in such a way that it works in a given context. And that is precisely what we are attempting to do under the India AI mission. First, with making the compute available. Second, with a deliberate choice on, we thought deeply on whether we need to build a model for ourselves or whether we need to just work with existing open source models with some adaptation. Eventually, I think the call came around to we should try to focus on building some models, but be also focused that we don't waste too much resources on that. One or two large language models, but many of the others, foundational models, small language models, multimodal models, working in different parts of what needs to happen, whether it's visual models, quantitative models, different kinds, mathematical models, and so on, to make sure that we are able to cater to the different kinds of needs and actually to solve real-world issues. The other part of it, of course, is data. And data has always been a challenge, and how effectively we use data is one of the key things. And I think both Iqbal and I think somewhere in the audience we have Aparna Krishnan, and from my old work with JPAL many years ago, I think I can at least lay claim that we got you working on general data beyond RCTs. So in a sense that the idea of we set up a data analytics cell at some point with the idea of looking at administrative data to see what insights it could yield. In some ways, what we are doing with the AI Kosh today of making available these data sets on a more wide basis is half the battle won, Aparna, because those days it would be very difficult to actually break through government silos and get people to share data. We're moving up that value chain. It's taken more than 10 or 15 years, but I think we'll get there. This is important, and in some ways, when the Prime Minister today emphasizes the need to break silos and share data more widely across, the message on this data has gone home. At the same time, protecting privacy and making sure that people are able to use the data on an anonymized basis is also something technology has enabled. And therefore, today we are in a position and we are in a situation where we can look at ways in which we can make data available for more people to use, researchers to use and others to use. In our early partnership with JPAL, the whole thing was about how we write our data sharing arrangements and data sharing memoranda of understanding. So that became an important part of what we did. So data, models, and compute. We provide all that, but all of that we provide for one and only one reason, which is to have applications with impact. And I think this entire summit is all about the kind of impactful applications we can create using AI. And whether we work, whether this whole thing will succeed, whether we will overcome the hype cycle, depends fundamentally on whether we have the right kind of solutions and the right kind of applications. And this is, in a sense, also about let 1,000 ideas bloom, let many, many ideas come up, and see which ones actually bubble up to the top as being competitive. If you walk through the expo, and I invite all of you to do it, today it's fully open, and you'd see probably about 600 plus startups, and in many of the other larger booths and stalls of big companies as well, many startups being showcased, and you can see a wide range of applications in healthcare, in agriculture, in education, in manufacturing, and across the board, in different real-world sectors where people are attempting to use AI. And I think that is where the significant difference and the significant impact is going to be made in terms of having AI actually work. In the first slide that Iqbal presented, there was a point about productivity and how productivity can actually go up with AI, and that's really the promise. I think there are so many areas, and particularly in the governance space, where productivity is probably the key challenge. Many countries, many governments, many states, even in India, will not be able to afford the number of people we actually need to perform every function that we require. We are never going to have as many teachers as we want. We are never going to have as many doctors as we want. We are never going to have as many nurses as we want, as many policemen, as many judges. If we can actually enhance their productivity, not only is there a possibility that the quality of services will improve significantly, but there's a possibility that we would be able to provide the kind of services that would truly delight, something that we did not think was possible before, but we can do today. And that is the kind of tantalizing possibility that AI opens up for us. How much and how effectively we are able to do it, and whether we watch our backs while we are doing it, is, I think, what all of this is about, to make sure that we're not just spending government money or public money on a series of experiments which don't work, but making sure that we pick the ones that work and scale them up. And that's the opportunity that we need to create. That's part of the intent of this particular summit, and which is why I think this particular session and this particular series of sessions by JPAL are so important to and so central to what this summit is attempting to do. And we truly look forward to finally see a summation of the kind of work that is being showcased here, and what suggestions and solutions and possible, even if not solutions, at least suggestions and recommendations for further work that we can do in the days to come. I think that's what is going to reflect. Thank you very much once again for all of you to come out here and participate so enthusiastically in the AI Summit.
Thank you so much to our speakers. I think we're off to a good start. Speakers, please rejoin me on stage and gather in the center for a quick photo. Thank you very much. We'll now move into a fireside chat to bring these perspectives together.
Hi. So thank you very much, Mr. Krishnan and Professor Kremer, for that really enlightening talk. Can I just begin by acknowledging one thing which many people may not notice? I think, like there might be some people complaining how long it takes to get in and how much security was there and the lines were too long. But as a former civil servant who has seen a series of conferences happen in India, and the rest of the world, these are generally a very closed affair. Like 30 people gather together to speak, maybe you get 40 people in the audience, and then the deliberations come out. I think I really want to commend Government of India for democratizing this event. It is really remarkable to see people here, not just from Delhi, but people here from all parts of the world. And I was telling my team here yesterday, there were like these 20-year-old kids who were presenting all of these sessions here. And even if 10% of these people end up adopting AI for productive purposes and achieving what you have done, this conference is a success. The rest of us are just the show. All of you in the audience are actually the real actors. So really, really thank you. So whenever you're being inconvenienced for the next 3 days coming in, just remember that. Okay, so let me begin, Secretary Krishnan, by asking you the question that you talked about, which is state capacity. I think we're talking a lot about the center and the funding that is being provided. Michael also alluded to the fact that states can be a powerhouse for evaluations. So as, like wearing your old hat as the finance secretary of Tamil Nadu and now as the mighty secretary, what would be your suggestions as to how should states be looking at this multitudes of applications that are being thrown at them? How do they decide what to do, where to invest in, how to choose, where to even begin? Because sometimes it can be overwhelming.
No, absolutely. I think it's not easy to pick. Even I can't walk down this corridor without being accosted by some young entrepreneur who says, I have this startup and I have this wonderful solution, you must try it. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, there are a lot of people who want to try things and genuinely want to try them. But to pick the right one is always going to be a challenge. So I think one of the things that needs to be inbuilt, and we are attempting to do that through the centers of excellence. We are trying to fund about 54 of them on AI across the country in every state. The idea partly is to enable states to understand how they want to move forward in this particular path. How do you evaluate what would work, allow a few of them to come up, but then figure out what is the bit that works the best. So I would honestly think, and in AI for Impact, what we are looking at is also a large number of people. It's not like a regular startup which is going to make huge money and therefore you can trust a venture capitalist to pick one of the good ideas. Probably we need some kind of social equity capitalism to kind of find a way that some of these solutions are picked, and then the government as a co-financier or a co-investor who steps in and tries to support some of the ideas that have really worked. That would probably be a model which can actually work in a situation like this, because at the one hand, you don't want to dampen the spirit of all those who want to contribute. At the same time, you can't support everybody. You can support them up to a point with a grant, up to a point with the possibility of scaling up. If it really works and there is an independent assessment of it and somebody is willing to put their money where their mouth is, then we take it forward.
Great. Michael, you talked about the importance of doing evaluations. One of the questions that, when we talk to our partners in tech companies, when we talk to the social enterprises and the nonprofits in this room is, they're saying, like, look, you want us to do an evaluation takes time to do. And the underlying technology is changing so fast. Like, the LLMs are changing, the AI is changing, the agentic capabilities are changing. What's the point of doing this evaluation? Because by the time this finishes and the results come, this will all be in the rear view mirror and this will not be relevant to me. So how would you respond to that question?
So let me pick up on something that Secretary Krishnan said. Well, first I'll pick up on what you just said and then refer back to your talk. So, and this is not answering the previous question a bit, you pointed out the importance of having some process for judging the multitude of applications and ideas that are out there. One structure that I think can be very useful for that, this is something that was done in Development Innovation Ventures, which I helped start in the United States. It was part of the government, but now we've launched independently, is is having a multi-phase process. So small grants for piloting new ideas, somewhat larger grants for rigorously testing them, and then somewhat larger grants for transitioning those to scale. And that type of an approach can provide evidence to state governments and others who are thinking about what they want to adopt, and also help get some of these started when the commercial venture capitalists might not be there. Now let me answer Iqbal's question by referring back to an example the government of India is doing. So one, I mentioned earlier the work that we've done in evaluating Andhra Pradesh program. And I talked about the success of that, but let me note a complication of that as well, and then I'll talk about what Niti Aayog did to address this. In our study, but also in the recent study of Khan Academy, also in a study in Rajasthan of another EdTech program, a key thing is usage. So in our example, we found initially very, very low usage of the tech, which is now, once it was possible to document that and to get very rapid information on that, because this is EdTech software. The company running it knew how much it was being used. So that just needed to be fed into the government systems, and then the government of Andhra Pradesh immediately started calling up the schools where usage was low and asking what was happening, and that solved the problem of low usage, and usage went up high again. But some system for doing that, in this case, you could get very rapid feedback. So building in the procurement system, something saying, look, the data on basic things like usage plus data on outcome variables should be supplied to the government, and there should be, and possibly be, rapid testing of things that affect short-run variables. A/B tests can be very, very valuable. But let me talk about something maybe more fundamental that the government of India did with Niti Aayog. So they experimented with a different type of procurement contract and payment system that was actually pay for performance, where they paid the EdTech companies based on the learning gains. And there are lots of tricky issues. I don't want to claim that's simple. But what it does do is it gives the companies incentives not just to develop a good product, but continually improve that product and make it better and better, and be creative about it and figure out where things are not going wrong, not just on the software, but on the utilization of that software by teachers, et cetera, and fix it because they want to get that payment, and that's what their payment is linked to. So pay for performance may be one way to address this.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Let me tell you, just to add to Michael's point, I think it's very important to know that what takes time in an evaluation is not necessarily the evaluation, but your theory of change as to how long does it take to make a difference in the outcome. And that has not changed, right? Like whether it is AI, whether it is teacher training, whether it is one laptop per child, if it is going to take 6 to 9 months to increase the learning outcomes of children, that cycle cannot be accelerated. So that, I think, is the first point. The second point is that the technology and the data stack on which a lot of this is built allows us to actually speed up the time of the evaluation. A lot of the evaluation time was sending people to homes, collecting data, paper forms, digitizing it, making sure it's all correct. Now, because a lot of this data is digital, things can be faster. And then the final thing I would say is that impact evaluations, if they're done well, they're not just telling you whether this particular AI application worked or not. It is telling you why something worked. How did the technology intersect with our lives? How did they intersect with human behavior? How did it change trust in technology? How did it change the policies and the programs, which are the ecosystem? And so that value and that is never going to be replaced. Okay, we only have time for one more question, so I'm going to put this to Secretary Krishnan. You are in seminal times, right? Like most IAS officers dream of a posting in which they are able to make a little bit of a difference. 3 years ago, you came over and took over as the Secretary of MeitY. I think that was just about the time when ChatGPT was coming out, or it came out a little after that. and let me just say it simply, your life has never been the same again. You've overseen the emergence of India, both in terms of the data centers and the LLMs, but also the applications. You've seen many things which have succeeded, some things that have failed. What is it that you're most excited about? What are the things that you are worried about? And most importantly, other low and middle income countries which are behind India in terms of disabilities, what is the message that you would give to folks in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, as to what should they keep in mind? So 3 loaded questions. What you're most optimistic about, what you're worried about, and 1 key lesson for other LMICs.
I think what I'm most optimistic about is that the adoption by people of technology is in a way that actually makes it work for them. Of course, there are some downsides and negatives and, all the cybercrime, misrepresentation kind of stuff people talk about. But I think the balance is to the positive, and people will tend to adopt technology in a way that it actually works for them. You have to make it available, you have to make it accessible. And then the key challenge for countries like India and countries of the global south is how do you improve access to technology that people can effectively use, and how do you work around it? So I think in a number of ways, and not just in the last 3 years, but even before that, India has succeeded in doing that through a series of measures, access to devices, instruments, the way that we've reached out through the internet to more than 1 billion plus users, fundamentally through handheld mobile phones and so on, instead of conventional ways of doing it. All of those have meant that the access issue has been resolved to some extent. The technology keeps moving up the value chain, and we need to keep pace with that. And to keep pace with that, we have to find frugal ways of innovating. And I think that's partly something we are trying through the India AI mission. And that's something which I think as a model could work for the rest of the world as well, particularly in the global south. And through the UN and through various other bodies, including with the World Bank and others, we do have discussions going on how we can make this model work for other countries in the global south.
Fantastic. Please join me in thanking our wonderful panelists. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers for a wonderful conversation. Please join me in one more round of applause for our speakers. Our next session is AI in Health, Saving Lives at Scale. Please join me in welcoming Ziad Obermeyer to the stage.
Slides over.